What was Catherine's secret message to William? Why is Prince Harry causing a stir on stage in New York? And will the King now make David Beckham a knight? Join us as we talk all things royal. Hello and welcome to Palace Confidential. I'm Jo Elvin, and joining me this week to talk about the big royal stories is the Daily Mail's royal editor Rebecca English, the paper's editor-at-large Richard Kay, and the paper's diary editor Richard Eden. Welcome to you all. Now, last week's episode of Reading the Royals looked at the fascinating relationship between the late Queen and Meghan Markle. So if you missed it, there is no need to panic. It will play again straight after this show. And our YouTube channel is getting very close to the landmark of 350,000 subscribers. Do help us out by pressing that subscribe button and you'll never miss another brilliant show. Right, now let's start the show with His Majesty the King in some really unusual and lovely footage talking to some tourists.
No, thank you so much.
Are you all trying to go somewhere else today, are you? You're
No,
not getting too
thank-
wet, I hope.
No.
Are you all living round here?
No, we live in Texas.
In Texas.
Texas?
Yes.
I don't believe it. So, are you having an enjoyable time in London?
Very much.
Anyway, I do hope you make the most of it.
Thank
so much.
Have
you.
a very happy Christmas.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. You as well.
Wow.
Thank you.
Oh, Rebecca, tell us all about this.
This was standout favourite moment of the week for me. So I was with the King yesterday as he was visiting a church in Notting Hill, obviously made famous by the Richard Curtis movie. And it was a serious visit because he was thanking aid volunteers and supporters of the Disasters Emergency Committee. And it wasn't announced in advance because of security, because it was such a kind of open venue. But obviously, if you turn up in a state Bentley with a load of outriders, then it tends to, even in very flash Notting Hill, attract some attention. So by the time he came out, there was a really quite a big crowd. And I love the fact that people could see him doing this, because this is what he does day in, day out, and I don't think people realise. He literally just veered off and decided to go chat to a few people. I offered them, once he'd left, I had some footage on my phone, and because they were tourists, I said, oh, would you like some footage of this kind of special moment? And they said, oh, you can have our footage as well,
yeah.
which is how we've managed to get hold of it. And the guy, Angel from Texas, was like, this is the most British thing to happen into the UK ever.
And now all tourists will expect this kind of service, won't they?
I think so. It's a great advert for tourism to Britain. You know, you come here and you might have a chat
Quite a high expectation.
to the King.
I mean, Rebecca, was his staff a bit nervous about this? It is quite unusual just to veer off.
They're always nervous, but obviously they know there's a very good chance that he's going to do this. He just loves to talk to people, basically. And I think what the gentleman from Texas was saying to me was like, this just wouldn't happen in the US. There'd be so much security, barriers. You would just never get near a head of state or someone famous like this. And we were literally just walking down the street and we're like, there's King Charles. And he just came over to say hello. And he was like, what a man, what a guy. You just couldn't believe it. It was great.
I was impressed, Richard, with how sort of comfortable and casual he was with the whole thing.
Well, I think that one of the key things with the King has always been his interest in people. You know, he's always loved hearing about us, and that sort of reflected through his whole life as Prince of Wales and Prince's Trust and everything. It's been that interest. So I think, you know, as you say, he's always keen to talk to people. Yeah. And I think that's one of the strengths of the royal family, that they do get out and about. You know, was it Queen Elizabeth said, you know, must be seen to be believed.
Well, she was seen, but and as much as we know how charismatic she was to people, Richard Kay, she wasn't really one for getting in, out and amongst it like our King seems to be.
No, I mean, Charles is much more comfortable, much more nimble on his feet, you know, he can speak without notes. The Queen was not as confident in public. Of course, what it really demonstrates is it's a wonderful advertisement for monarchy and constitutional monarchy and having a monarch as head of state. And the reason why it wouldn't happen in America, if I may, is because America is very polarised over who their current occupant of the White House is. And we don't have that problem here. But yeah, going back to the late Queen Elizabeth, I can't imagine her making a beeline for some tourists if she paid a visit similar to Charles. But you know, Charles has this great ability to get on with people in any walk of life, wherever he meets them.
Where's the tension then where it lies between you want your heads of state like that to be, you know, approachable and people to like them, but then you also, the reason they're so special is because they're so removed.
it's a
fine balance, isn't it?
It's a fine balance.
Yeah.
It really is. I mean, you don't want them going up, hugging and perhaps greeting them with a kiss, for example.
That would, Richard Eden would definitely have the smelling salts in there.
I think we'd all have the smelling salts. But on the other hand, a degree of spontaneity, I think, is fabulous for the image of the monarchy and for us as a country.
And trust our Rebecca to be there on the spot to get that footage. I thought it was amazing. Now, that outing from the King came just after the ending of the state visit. How was that?
Yeah, it was a fantastic day on Tuesday. Obviously, state visit for the Emir of Qatar, and it's everything that Britain does best. It's pomp, it's pageantry, it's greeting your visitors with a huge degree of honour, and you can see by the smile on the Emir's face how much he's a passionate Anglophile and he loves horses and the military, and we gave it to him in spades basically.
Amazing.
So there was great ceremony on horse guards, obviously a lot of interest because Catherine was back in the royal fray again, and I think we'll probably talk a bit more about that later.
Indeed.
And obviously went on to the state visit, the state banquet in the evening, and that obviously we thought that would be a bit quieter than normal because obviously Catherine wasn't going to attend that because she's still trying to manage her return to royal life. And just to kind of give you an insight, what the royal correspondents get before the state banquet are obviously not trusted with coming to dinner, but we get to have a little look at KFC. We have some sandwiches while we're watching other people eating fancy things. But we're out to go and have a look around the table that is called the table preview. And Buckingham Palace won't tell you what the story is. They just kind of say, here we are, have a look. And there's obviously lovely seasonal flowers and great kind of canteens of cutlery. And I have to walk up and down this horseshoe-shaped table and look at every one of 170 name tags. And I kind of, it was pretty much as you would expect. And then I kind of stopped for a second. Someone said you effectively like moonwalked back 2 paces. Like I looked down and I was like, isn't that David Beckham? And I could see a rather smug-looking press officer going, yeah, might be. And I was like, is Victoria here? And they went, you'll have to find her name. So I walked around the rest of the table and found her very close up to the top VIP bit of it. So yeah, we didn't expect that. They pulled that one out of the bag.
Well, we'll go back to that in a minute about the Beckhams. But other than a nice dinner that a state banquet is, Richard Kay, what is the point of it all?
Well, it's all part of oiling the wheels of diplomacy. And as Rebecca says, we do these things magnificently. I mean, the French put on a pretty good show as well, but there is something special about a state banquet at Buckingham Palace. Sadly, Buckingham Palace won't be having any for a few years because of the refurbishment that is going to go on, and we'll have to push them all down to Windsor Castle. What a shame that will be. What a drawback. But I remember one American president much preferred Windsor Castle. Yeah, it was President Reagan. He loved being at Windsor. But yeah, I think there's something about that whole majesty, this pomp and splendour, as Rebecca was saying, about what we can put on, and it really does impress visitors from overseas, which has to be good for selling Britain PLC.
Indeed. Now, the Beckhams, Richard Eden, the appearance of them did get people talking, but not only about a potential knighthood for David, but about their position in the court. What's your take?
Well, it is very interesting because David and Victoria have been friends of Harry and Meghan, as well as William and Catherine. They attended both of the royal weddings. And, it's been interesting to watch which of those couples they've sort of moved towards as Harry and Meghan have moved to America, because David Beckham also moved to America with his football team in Miami. And so people thought there would be a close connection between these two couples in the States. And it hasn't happened. That the Beckhams have clearly decided that they're going to stick with the royal family, and their rewards came this week with the invitation to the banquet, I would say. So
do we think that is one step inevitably closer to Sir David Beckham?
I think so, yeah. I think it's certainly a good sign. I mean, he will have been invited because of his connections to Qatar, let's be clear. He was a paid ambassador ahead of their World Cup, and did a lot with their image of the country. So that's why he was invited.
Now, there was one big omission, wasn't there, Rebecca, in the form of our Queen, Camilla. She wasn't very well.
Yeah, so obviously she's not been well since early November after coming back from that obviously very gruelling trip to Australia and Samoa, and I always knew there was something a bit more serious to it when she missed Remembrance. And I saw her at a function. I said, "Oh, I knew you hadn't been well if you missed Remembrance," because she never would miss that. And she said to me at the time that she'd been feeling really rotten. And obviously Buckingham Palace are a little bit careful about how much personal medical information they put in the public arena, because it's their private business. We don't need to know every little thing. But I think because although she's actually recovered from the pneumonia that we now know she had, she's still suffering from some really nasty side effects. One of which is real fatigue, and she's been feeling absolutely knocked out. So I think she was keen to try and explain publicly a little bit why she was dipping in and out of things more, because I don't think she wants people to think she hasn't got commitment to events like that. She's a trooper, she would have been there. So she obviously didn't attend Horse Guards because it meant she would have been out in the cold air, and trust me, I was out there for an hour or so. It's very cold when you're standing still, and a carriage ride back, but she met them for lunch, and then she was at the state banquet but didn't stand on her feet for 20 minutes or so doing the receiving line. I mean, she's out and about today. I know some engagements she's doing next week, so you'll still see her. But I think probably between now and the end of the year, she's going to still be managing it at her pace a little bit.
She needs to rest. Richard Kay, obviously, we were so used to the Queen up until the very final years being really robust through her whole reign, never seeming to be ill. So it does feel like the nation still gets a bit spooked whenever someone's ill.
We do get spooked. I mean, this frailty that surrounds the royal family currently is kind of new territory for us. As you say, I mean, Queen Elizabeth powered through everything. It wasn't exclusive. She wasn't, she was unique in that regard, because her sister, Princess Margaret, was often unwell and was often cancelling engagements when she did them. But she had a remarkable stamina and an ability to overcome sniffles, if you like, whenever she could. But yeah, it's different. But we've got to accept that's where we are now. And possibly, don't forget, Queen Camilla has come to all this late in life. Queen Elizabeth had it throughout her life, and she has sort of managed expectations in that way.
Well, in brighter news, Richard, even one royal who it was very pleasing to see was Catherine. What did you make of her appearance?
Yes, I mean, I'm sure it's not just me, but there is something so reassuring about seeing Catherine there with William together. Very strong image, and in Queen Camilla's absence as well, it really emphasised her importance. So she's clearly better, which is fantastic to see, and playing a really important part in that state visit. So, long may it continue. And
indeed, Rebecca, we discussed quite a lot on this programme how significant some of the small gestures can be between the royals, and you've noted some interesting body language between William and Catherine. Yeah, I wrote a piece. It's a small part of a kind of wider piece I've written for our Mail Plus subscribers this week, just my take on the visit. And what I like is that there wasn't actually any mollycoddling of her. A couple of moments you saw William put his hand on her back as if to say, look, this way, well done, keep going. But it wasn't very, very obvious. And he trusts her, because she's a consummate public performer, to go out there and do what she does best, which is to shine. And it felt like her presence there gave the whole event a really big lift. It's what we've been missing this year. While everyone understands why she hasn't been seen that much in public, it was really great to have her back. And I didn't write this in the piece, but it occurred to me afterwards. I think this compares quite a lot with Harry and Meghan when they were members of the royal family, working members of the royal family, because you would often see them on engagements kind of holding hands, twisting hands, rubbing each other's back. And William and Kate are very different, and I think probably all the better for it. We're here, we're professional, let's just go out and do our job. They are very different, but it didn't stop speculation about a certain piece of jewellery, a ring. What can you tell us about that? Oh, well, some people noticed that she was wearing her engagement ring again, which she hasn't been a lot this year. But I've seen that ring on her hand close up, and it's
it's a big piece of jewellery.
It's just so heavy. One's finger can't cope with it all the time.
And, you know, day to day, when you're around the house, you're doing school runs, you know, with the kids, it's not terribly practical. So I've never read that much into it. I suspect it. And I suspect this year, when she's undergoing cancer treatment, she's probably lost weight as well. You know, rings get looser. So I suspect it's just not been practical to wear it. And she has been sporting a really nice, what appears to be some kind of eternity band instead, which is more practical from day to day. So I suspect we'll see it when she's on big public engagements, but maybe she doesn't wear it so much in private.
And tell us, she wrote quite movingly this week ahead of a big event, didn't she?
Yes, we've got her together at Christmas Carol service on Friday, and the Palace, Kensington Palace, issued at the weekend a letter that she's written that will be made available to guests, both at the big event at Westminster Abbey in London, but 15 local events around the country. And I think we discussed on the programme a few weeks ago how, while she doesn't want to make it about herself, inevitably when you've gone through something as life-changing as a cancer experience, it does affect your take on life, and that will be in the background of everything she's doing. And the letter was about talking about empathy, about turning to love, not hate, maybe trying to look at the bigger picture and giving people support with a kind of simple gesture or a hug or a few kind words when they need it most. So, yeah, I thought it was an interesting turn. I think we've seen a lot more emotion from her publicly this year, and I think that's something we will continue to see. It's
interesting, isn't it? Because in Robert Hardman's biography, The King, he suggested that Catherine could be the spiritual force of the royal family in the future. It's a terribly grand statement. Do you think it could be true?
Well, I think the reference in Robert's book was because she had, I think, taken more interest in spiritual side of things since her illness, and also that Prince William wasn't a regular churchgoer. So, but I think it was. As I recall, it was more a sort of hope from, I think, a regular churchgoer rather than actually what's happened.
Well, but maybe what Rebecca says proves that there's something in it.
Well, certainly with the carol service as well, you know, it's become a regular event, and it's something which lots of members of the royal family are looking forward to attending.
And we will have more on Catherine's carol service later in the programme indeed. Now, the sad death of 17-year-old photographer Liz Hatton, who was a friend of the show and of the Prince and Princess of Wales, touched an enormous amount of you. You can watch our last episode for more on that. Emma FINALLY wrote, "So sad about Liz Hatton, a beautiful young lady. Thank you, Rebecca, for your kind words and the love you gave to her family. We are so lucky that we have William and Catherine, just such wonderful people. And as Rebecca said, that little appearance with Liz helped to make her journey and bucket list stratospheric. The power of real royals." LH has a solution for what to do with Prince Andrew. They write, "Andrew should take in rescue horses." That's some left field one, isn't it? Why? What have the horses done? What have the horses done? A good cause, and give him something worthwhile to do. Well then, Susan, aka Loves a Puzzle, who I'm pretty sure we've heard from before, hello Susan, wrote that after Richard Eden said that the Edward and Sophie model was being considered were Prince Harry ever to return, she has written, "I disagree with darling Richard," that's what is written there, I didn't put that in. "Edward and Sophie's path to becoming standout royals is not something Harry and his wife are capable of following. They simply lack the maturity and humility to put others before their own ambition." Gosh, Richard, care to respond to that?
I should say I wasn't saying myself that I'm encouraging them to come
I know,
back
well,
to Britain.
and people were cross with me for not getting cross with you for even speculating.
Oh, right. No, I was saying that courtiers have suggested that this could be a route that they follow because of the way that Prince Edward and Sophie, you know, rehabilitated their image and also concentrated on royal duties after trying to pursue sort of money-making careers outside the royal family. So that was the model. It wasn't what I was suggesting myself.
Okay, that clears that up. Well, thanks as always for your comments, and a reminder to leave any royal-related questions that you might have, and we'll try to answer as many as we can in one of our special Christmas episodes. Right, let's get back to my panel. Now, Rebecca, we have an unusual engagement with Harry and William today, but before anyone gets too upset or too excited, they're not going to be in the same room, are they?
No, this has happened for the last couple of years. It's the Diana Awards, which obviously is the one big national awards organisation in her name and in her memory, and they highlight really the best of the young people both in the UK and around the world. And it's a virtual online ceremony, and we have got the brothers both making very different offerings. William has written a letter which was released yesterday actually for those who have won awards, praising them and saying how proud his mother would have been of them and what they're trying to achieve. Prince Harry's recorded a video message which will be played later on today. And I think it was recorded in New York a couple of months ago when he met some of the Diana Award people. So two very different contributions in very different ways, when previously, in years gone past, we have seen them at these events together, but clearly that's not going to happen anytime soon.
No, and Richard Kay, is it fair to say that when it comes to even the memory of their mother, they can't seem to agree on that anymore?
Well, I think they can agree that the memory of their mother is very important to them both. What we're seeing, of course, is a tussle over that legacy. Both of them have claimed them for themselves and in different ways. I mean, it's a tragedy, really, but it goes to the heart of the split between the brothers, that their mother, who was so important to them, both as children and has been their sort of guiding lodestar as adults, is somehow perceived to be taking one side against the other. And I mean, I think at various times William has been frustrated by the way Harry has particularly tried to cloak himself in their mother's clothes, and he has from time to time hit back. And in fact, it's quite a more of an even distribution, I would say now. Both of them, am I right, Rebecca, sort of claim this sort of the uniqueness of Diana, what she had to offer the world, and where they are trying to follow her.
Yeah, and I think William finds a kind of conjecture about that as who kind of loves their mother and who protects her best. He gets quite frustrated and quite offended by it. And
I should say that there was a moment recently in, I think it was a programme, wasn't it? I think the Mail on Sunday picked up on it a couple of weeks ago, that William actually referenced Harry in something to do with
that was the homelessness.
About the homelessness.
Yeah.
Right, yes.
So it was suggested it might have been even an olive branch. I think it might be stretching it a bit, but it was an acknowledgement at least that they have a shared experience with their mum.
And I think that's quite a classy move, because you know, he doesn't want to airbrush his brother out of his life. You know, he's his brother, and he might be frustrated with him. I'm sure he still loves him in his own way. And you know, he would never want to suggest that, you know, Harry was a lesser part of Diana's life in any way. I'm just not sure he gets the same back.
I mean, we'll return to the question of Diana in just a moment, but Richard Eden, who do you think finds it the more frustrating out of William and Harry, that every year they sort of like have to sort of like both find some way to have a joint involvement in this?
It is awkward. I mean, you know, the Diana Awards, that should be this annual celebration of her legacy, has now become a yearly reminder of the differences between her sons. And last year I remember we had Harry sort of joining by video link from a ski resort where he was on some fancy holiday, and he ended up talking to like awards winners for hours, and you don't want it to be caught up in a sort of competition between the brothers.
Well, it does tend to get framed that way, though, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's unfortunate, and I think it's not perhaps something that they relish anymore.
Indeed. Well, Rebecca, Harry was on stage in New York last night, and it's safe to say, as per, his comments weren't without controversy.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'd say they're controversial, but they covered a lot in 25 minutes, that's for sure. Notably, the one thing he didn't mention was the royal family, which I thought was interesting. I mean, and I got the impression, I might be wrong, but I certainly got the impression the interviewer had been instructed not to ask about them either. Because as a journalist, that's the first thing, in a free interview, that's the first thing you would want to ask about.
Surely the New York Times wouldn't be dictated to about the terms of their interview.
I'm saying nothing. Yeah.
But he covered everything from not wanting to come back to the UK. He said he was very happy bringing up his children in the US. Interestingly, he said he felt he could do things there with them that he couldn't do in the UK, and I'd love to know what they were, because William and Catherine live really normal lives. They do the school run every day, they take their kids to theme parks, to country fairs, to play dates at other friends' house.
Maybe he was just thinking about surfing in the sunshine.
Well, yes, that's true. It's one thing you can't do a lot of here. He also said that he just wants to focus on being the best husband and father, into response to questions about, you know, the speculation regarding their ongoing separate professional lives and whether that would ever spill out into their personal lives. I mean, a huge part of it was attacks on the media, particularly the British media, which is why I have to say I've never personally bought into this suggestion that he wants to return as a working royal, because I don't think he ever would, because he wouldn't want to have to deal with journalists like me again. And, you know, he can't hide his contempt for the British media. He accuses us of making up a lot of stories, but I would argue that I think the British media have got more right than wrong over the years, as his own book proved. So yeah, he had a lot to say. Also talked about his ongoing court cases as well, including the court case with the Home Office, and he was quite scathing about the British judicial system, which I thought was quite interesting, about the way it works, and you know, effectively kind of painted himself as someone who'd been victimised in having to bring this case in the first place, and the way that the case has been portrayed in the media generally. So there was quite a bit of feeling sorry for oneself.
And Richard Kay, he did talk, didn't he, about how he feels that Diana would really be supportive of a lot of his actions of late. And you knew Diana. What do you make of that?
Well, first of all, I'd use the word interview guardedly, because it wasn't really an interview. Harry was largely unchallenged by many of the sweeping statements he made about all sorts of things. But that was obviously a decision taken by the hosts of the event. On the issue of his mother, he really struck, it seemed to me, at the dichotomy that he has. He wants, on the one hand, to say that she would have championed his attacks on the media in particular because she had such a torrid time of it herself. Well, I would say this. I mean, she had a very ambivalent attitude towards the press. She would complain about stories when they were demonstrably wrong, as anyone should, and she extracted apologies from newspapers when they erred. She took legal action against photographers when they compromised her space. Again, no one has any issue with that. But this idea that she didn't have relationships with the media who were writing about her is pure and utter nonsense. And Harry knows that, because Diana made a point of getting to know many journalists, both in the tabloid press and the broadcast media and the broadsheet press. That was part of her modus operandi. Harry has not gone down that road at all. So to suggest that he's sort of doing his mother's work in taking on the media here is not true.
It's interesting to think what it would have been like had Harry had the same attitude in courting some sections of the media. You know, he doesn't really, does he?
No,
yeah.
no.
Well, there's always Omid Scobie, to be fair.
Your best friend.
But actually, there's an interesting point, Joe, because when they left the royal family, they very grandly, himself and Meghan, made a point of saying, we are never going to brief the media. We are not going to be like these people that we believe exist at the palace. Everything we're going to say is going to be on the record and open, attributable to a spokesman. And I would say that's exactly what they have not done. They have gone back to, or people around them, to briefing media outlets they feel are going to be favourable to them, helping with biographies. I mean, just last week over the court case with the Home Office, which I know we'll go on to discuss, but you know, a story was leaked to a national newspaper that's friendly to them about it. So there's quite a bit of hypocrisy involved.
Well, we will talk about that in a second. But one thing that does seem quite clear, Richard, is he's very certain of himself these days, isn't he? In the way he comes across and the way he speaks.
Yeah, I mean, you know, as a social diarist, I have to attend lots of parties, and he's turning into one of those people that you do avoid at parties. you know, where I appreciate, you know, he's the son of the king and everything, but where he's just becoming a bore. So, you know, he would go on, and while you're talking to him, you're kind of working out escape routes to get away, and that's certainly what watching this interview with the New York Times did to me. It's just, and because he was unchallenged as well, it's not good. No, but he's got this messianic thing. He wants to, I think he's talked about wanting to close down newspapers, including the Daily Mail, and that's his mission now, is to right wrongs as he sees it, and he's definitely messianic.
And given what you've spoken about the last few weeks, are you surprised at his certainty about staying in the US?
Well, to be fair, I mean, no one has really been saying that they're planning to leave America. It's what we know is that he wants to spend more time in Britain. There's causes and there's things he wants to do, and that's why he's so involved with this the Home Office case, because he feels that the security is a big issue. But sure, they're happy in America, but they certainly spending lots of time in different places.
Indeed. Well, Rebecca, you touched on this. I think this is what you touched on a minute ago. Prince Harry brought Taylor Swift up he's brought her into one of his legal cases this week.
Yeah, good luck, Prince Harry, in taking on the Swifties. That's all I say. Again, look, it's fascinating. So a story popped up in the Daily Telegraph basically saying that Harry was planning to use the example of Taylor Swift in his ongoing court case against the Home Office. And what happened is, when Taylor Swift was playing in the UK over the summer, she got given a police escort at Blues and Twos to and from Wembley Stadium. And this was because obviously she'd faced a very real terror threat. I think in Vienna it was.
That's right, yes.
Yeah. Before. And this actually caused quite a lot of argument and conjecture in the UK, because there was a lot of people who felt very strongly she wasn't entitled to that. There were a lot of government ministers who had free tickets to her shows, and they felt that undue pressure was put by them on the police to allow her to have this. Harry, of course, has seized upon this, and even his critics, I know, say, yeah, I would absolutely seize on this if I was him, because, not that they agree with him, but they can see why he's doing it, because he is saying, see, this is an example of the way people can be treated differently, and I should be treated differently, because I am still the son of the king, and I have a very unique security threat. So
it's a bit rich, though, isn't it? Come on, Taylor Swift was performing these concerts after direct terrorist threats.
Would 90,000 people go to see Harry at Wembley Stadium?
That's what I mean. Filling stadiums, bringing lots and lots of money into the country, and then Prince Harry thinks he should be accorded the same treatment. I mean, give me a break.
I just think what's interesting as well is that this court case, this detail was leaked to a newspaper, again by a couple who apparently don't leak.
Rebecca, that's a bit punchy.
Yeah, I'm going to go back in the box now.
Richard Eden, one of your stories this week is about a very long search that Meghan has had. After that, she's finally hired a new CEO for her American Riviera business.
Yeah, this is this company.
Is it you?
This is not. This is this company which was announced in March. In a rather strange business technique that we've seen from the Sussexes. So it was announced in March, but there were no details about, when it would start selling goods or anything like that. And I was told at the time that Meghan was interviewing a string of different candidates to be the boss of this new company. Well, finally we found out that she has appointed someone. She's found the perfect candidate with all the attributes she was looking for, herself.
Well, she can't fire herself.
No. So yes, on the one hand, it's great. She can, put her stamp on the company. But my goodness, it does make things a bit tricky, doesn't it? Because now there's no one else to blame, is there? So let's hope that everything goes very smoothly with this company when it's eventually launched.
It's kind of fascinating, isn't it? It's like the only person who can do this is me. It's like the only person I'll be happy with.
Yeah, so anyway, good luck to her, and we look forward to sampling these products when they're available.
I can't wait to see some more jam. Richard Kay, we also heard this week about Meghan's new show. Now, those who have followed her career might notice a similarity between that and a certain previous blog.
Coming to a streaming service near you, and this sounds very much to me like a remake of The Tig, her famous pre-marriage blog, which she wound down when she married Harry. Lifestyles stuff, gardening, entertaining, cooking, these are going to be the themes, so Meghan is positioning herself as a sort of a new a lifestyle figure like Martha Stewart.
It just feels it's just all a bit done, isn't it? Have we run out of ideas for Meghan's career.
Well, the idea was to coincide with a series on Netflix. So,
Yeah.
it makes sense, doesn't it, if there's things featured in this programme that she could then sell. But certainly, I think their finances are riding on this. We're seeing Harry less and less involved in the money-making side of the Sussex operation. So, it all hinges on Meghan.
And now, returning to Catherine for a moment, Rebecca, and tomorrow you'll be going to her Christmas carol service. What do you think we can expect?
It's a genuinely lovely event. I mean, Westminster Abbey, and here I am doing my bit for the British Tourist Board, but it is a magical place to visit. The sense of history and occasion there at any time of year is fantastic, but at Christmas it's really special, and they decorate it with kind of Christmas trees and natural decorations. And what's so lovely, although it's obviously filled with 1,000 people, there's a real sense of community to it, because it's all these community champions, community heroes, people who've done great things for the people around them, and it's just a chance to say a huge thank you to them from William and Catherine, and also kind of on behalf of the wider royal family. We've got, a few pop stars appearing. It's a little bit of everything, and obviously you can see it all on Christmas Eve on ITV, but obviously I'll give you a little flavour of what we've seen next week.
Will it make you feeling all Christmassy?
Oh no, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, last year, as you turned up, there were people with mince pies and there were carol singers. And it was a proper cold, crisp evening. So it's fantastic. And also, we hope to hopefully see the 3 children as well, like we did last year.
This is what we need, isn't it? Some Christmas sparkles, some Christmas joy.
It's been a tough year for them
Yeah.
as a family. Just kind of end the year on a high note.
Well, we do look forward to hearing more about that next week, and no doubt seeing some gorgeous photos. And speaking of great photos, after last week's discussion of the Royal Variety Show, we thought we'd pull together some of our very favourite images of the event over the years. There's some fantastic historic ones in here for those with longer memories than some. Well, as we discussed last week as well, not all the royals are big fans of the Royal Variety performance, but we loved seeing them there. Now, don't go anywhere, as the latest episode of Reading the Royals is coming right up. If you click here, you can get that. Just time to thank my guests, Rebecca, Richard, and to you, of course, for watching, and we'll see you next week. Bye for now.